Hey guys, hope you all are doing well and are surviving right now. I know it's getting difficult for um, the kids in my house, being stuck in all the time and not seeing their friends. So I really hope you guys are doing okay. Um, I'm going to do the next learning check for social studies. So we're going to talk about it is the medieval towns in Western Europe. Also, I sent an updated lesson plan list of everything that you guys are required to do and the things that you don't need to do. So a lot of things were taken out since the end of school got moved up. Um, so if you didn't receive that, or if you have questions about that, just give me a call. All right, so I'm going to share my screen again and go through the slideshow. Okay. So this is the second packet still. Present this. Okay. Making sure it's working. I don't know if you guys can see me well. It's loading. Okay, that didn't do what I wanted it to do. Let's try it again. I'm sorry it's being so slow. I was having a lot of technology trouble last week. Hopefully things will run smoother this week. Okay. So again, each of these slides will correspond to your learning check questions. So I didn't put the numbers on them this time, but I'll walk you through it as we go. So, what did medieval towns look like? So they emerged around castles, monasteries, and trade centers or trade routes. They were the centers of trade and industry. A lot of times they were protected by thick stone walls and had very narrow streets. Um, there were not there was not a lot of natural light, so the houses were dark inside, and they could sometimes be smelly and dirty. They didn't have like a system to get rid of trash or waste. So a lot of times it would just go out into the streets. So they were not the cleanest. Farming methods or improvements in farming. So this slide will correspond with question 1 on your learning check. So the better farming methods, they were able to feed more people who lived in the towns, and that gave others the ability to do their own to have their own trade. So because every family didn't have to farm for their own food, there were merchants and people who were doing other jobs because they didn't need to farm all the time to feed themselves. Um, so a guild, oh, I did put numbers on most, I'm not sure if I put them on all of them, but so a guild makes sure that work is held to high standards and products are good quality. So again, there were people like cobblers who made shoes. The guild is kind of like the manager. So they just made sure that everything was held to a high standard. And for job training, you started out as an apprentice. You then became a journeyman and finally a master craftsman. And the way that medieval youth got their jobs was basically whatever your father was. That's pretty much a guarantee that that's what you will do as well. All right. So, again, the medieval towns were just not clean, unclean and unsanitary. Solely, they just didn't have the resources to take care of. I mean, they didn't have garbage trucks that came around and collected our trash. It was just a lot in the road, a lot of trash in the roads, and again, that waste. So, one of the reasons disease spread so quickly in medieval towns is because they were so unsanitary. Just lack of cleanliness. Wash your hands. Okay. So this starts the learning target 7.4 about discussing the effects of historical events that led to the decline of feudalism in Europe during the Middle Ages. So that starts off with the Magna Carta in 1215. And the Magna Carta attempted to limit the power of the king. So the like the United States Constitution, it kind of does the same thing for the president. It sets out the limits of what the president is able of doing, and that's why we have it's called a system of checks and balances, and just making sure that one person does not rule everything. So the Magna Carta, that's what it was trying to do during the Middle Ages. It was trying to limit the power of the king, so he was not the all ruler. An English king could give people, like ordinary people, a voice in government. And the way they would do this is by calling the model parliament. So it was really an attempt to make people feel included and make them feel like they had a say in what was going on. And I have a typo in the word government. I'm sorry about that. All right. The bubonic plague in the 14th century. So you guys have probably heard of the Black Death. That was another name for this, or Black Plague. So trading was one of the biggest contributions to the bubonic plague. So it started along the Silk Road, and it likely started in China and spread throughout because of the trade routes, the way the trade routes worked. So you'll see in your packet on your learning check, there's a map there. It's kind of interesting to see, how once it made its way over from China, it just spread all the way out everywhere, kind of like what's going on now with COVID. So again, trading was the biggest contribution. It affected all of Europe, and some of the signs and symptoms that you would see people with were fever, vomiting, coughing, and sneezing. And then the egg-sized swellings or bumps, and they would turn black and blue. And that's where the Black Death name came from. And there were approximately 24 million deaths. The plague itself reduced population. Obviously, 24 million people were killed. Trade and commerce slowed almost to a halt because so many people were sick and dying, and it couldn't happen. There weren't many things to make, or people weren't making as many things because people were sick. The plague also led the feudal lords to no longer hold the most power. And the Catholic Church lost a great deal of influence because it was unable to ease people's fears over the plague's effects. So the plague really was a huge moment in the Middle Ages, because after the Catholic Church lost some of its power, and after feudal lords lost some of their power, feudalism really started to go on the decline. And then finally, the 100 Years' War, and this was fought between England and France, and it started in 1337 through 1453. And this is really what crumbled feudalism at the end. Bubonic plague helped. 100 years really was it. So the longbow was one of the technological advantages that helped the English win many early battles. So they had the longbow instead of what the French had, which were, I don't remember what they're called, to be honest with you. Crossbow. That's what it's called, crossbow. So with the advantage of having the longbow, it really helped the English win many of the battles. That, and the English had significantly lighter armor, and it helped them, with increased speed and mobility. So that was another advantage. But the longbow was 100 Years' War, big advantage, technological advantage. Okay, and that is the end of that section. Get back over here to you. Okay. That was the decline of feudalism, and learning check 7-2. You should be able to make it through your learning check now. I'm going to post another video hopefully soon, so we can talk about the common assessment. So what I'll probably do is I have a study guide, and we're just going to go through the study guide for it. So kind of same thing as we just did for the learning check. So if you guys have any questions about that, about this video or anything else, give me a call and we'll work on it, and I will get working on the next video. So see you guys later.